Welcome to the Daily Freedomist Show. This is your host, Paul Gordon Collier, coming at you live from the Black and Gold Freedomist channel on YouTube. That is the Black and Gold Freedomist channel on YouTube, not the White and Gold Freedomist channel, but you should subscribe to both, and the link should be down below. On today's episode, well, let's look at what we're not going to be talking about first, because that is how we do things. Facebook's oversight board disapproves efforts to screen misinformation from the people. And then we have corporate America puts resources behind bill that criminalizes Christianity. These are two stories that we're not going to be talking about today. And I don't know, I can't remember now if we're going to talk about this one here. Parents protest critical race theory in North Carolina schools while districts insist it will ignore them. We may or may not talk about that one. I'm not sure. And if you go to the Freedomist, freedomist.com, I want to make sure that you click on that Newswatch page link. And when you do, you can go to right here and you can scroll down and you can see all the stories that we're going to talk about and then some. All kinds of stories that we're going to be talking about and so much more that we're not going to be talking about. And when you scroll to the top, you'll see The Capitalist Manifesto, The End of Class Warfare Towards Universal Affluence, written by Ralph Penko and William R. Collier Jr. William R. Collier Jr. happens to be my identical twin and also the editor of The Freedomist, and forwarded by George Gilder. And if you click on the link, it takes you to the Amazon page where you could buy the book for $14.95. And what you could do here is read about the end of class warfare towards universal affluence. You can read about a capitalism that has, well, I don't know if it's never been tried or if it, whatever, however you want to look at it, but at the very least, the quote-unquote capitalism we have today is really what they call crony capitalism, what I call market authoritarian. Well, market authoritarianism is what it is, and it's a capitalism, a quote capitalism, unquote, that cuts out virtue, that cuts out morality, that cuts out the stewardship responsibility of those that have to continue to treat those that have not as if they are actually quote-unquote equals, as if they are made in the image of God just like them. And I encourage you to go to that and read that. And with that in mind, let's get on to our stories. Antifa abolish ICE protesters interrupt Biden's speech. Who responds by offering them a mic? And I'm calling the video version of this, which we're making right now. Well, we're making right now. Biden promises Antifa to appease their wishes to abolish ICE. There he is, with a smiley face. There's Joe and his smiling face. Just a smiling, happy guy. Just a good-looking man. He is a good-looking man, I'll say that. The Biden family, good-looking family. And you know, in America, if you're quote-unquote good-looking, you get a lot of doors. Good-looking privilege is probably the most privileged class that exists in America today. Couple that with money. Good-looking plus money. You're in like Flynn, and this is a man who has both. So this is Biden Antifa protest ICE. Biden confronted by Antifa protesters in ICE speech is the topic report. And our first link here is protesters repeatedly interrupt Joe Biden at his car rally, and he tells them he agrees with their extreme cause. Give me another 5 days. And this is an excerpt written by, well, this is Carlos Garcia who wrote this excerpt. Well, he wrote the whole article, but we excerpt from it. President Joe Biden tried to get past an awkward moment with loud protesters interrupting his rally by telling them that he agreed with their cause, but they continued until they were kicked out. Biden was speaking at a drive-in rally near Atlanta, when protesters began demanding that he shut down all detention centers and abolish the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. Biden was celebrating his 100th, I could have said 100th birthday, and I would have believed it. End detention now, they chanted, while the others chanted, abolish ICE. And Biden responded, we'll give you a microphone. And let's dig a little bit deeper into this little story here. There's Joe. There's Joe. And no, stop text censorship, yes, but I don't want to give you my email. By the way, on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of trustworthiness, I give this site maybe about a 6, 5 or 6, which is pretty high for most factional sites. So there, take that for whatever it's worth. So, oh, that's all you're going to say. I'll read more. There you go. Zeke Miller tweets, Biden's speech interrupted by protesters shouting, "End detention now and abolish ICE." They were escorted out by staff. Biden then responded that he agreed with their cause after they continued to interrupt. "I agree with you. I'm working on it, man. Give me another 5 days." Folks, you all know what they're talking about. There should be no private prisons, period. None, period. They should not exist, and we're working to close all of them. That's not actually what they were shouting, but I do want to say, by the way, I 100% stand with Joe Biden. Hashtag stand with Biden when it comes to shutting down private prisons. So you're going to create a market that relies upon the profitability of cheap labor that they derive from people being in prison. I wonder why the United States of America has the most, I'm going to say the highest official percentage of human beings that are incarcerated in its population. I think China's percentage is probably much higher. That is, well, there's a lot of people in prison that aren't being accounted for. Also in China, they kill you a lot faster and a lot easier. So there's a lot of people that just get killed and they don't even show up on the prison rolls. So we want to keep that in mind. But still, at the very least, amongst quote unquote free nations, quote unquote advanced nations at the very least, we are by far and away the country that happens to incarcerate the most amount of prisoners. And I don't know if other nation states have some degree of private prison, well, I say a private prison industry or not, but at any rate, the protesters weren't there to, maybe some of them were talking about private prisons, but they were really there to abolish ICE, which is, well, I mean, take it for what it is. And Joe Biden got interrupted, got a little bit flabbergasted, and let's see. Here we go. Let's see if they show this here. Here he is.
I want to thank you, the people of Georgia.
End detention now. They're talking about detaining immigrants coming in. By the way, I hate the phrase illegal immigrant. Ugh, hate it.
We'll give you a microphone.
They'll give you a microphone. He's a little bit lost. He's a little bit lost there.
Folks.
Doesn't know how to respond. He's a man that does not know how to respond to anything outside of a very narrow script. And whatever conspiracy theories that are out there, I'll just say this, that me from naked observation, I really don't feel like we have a quote-unquote president who has all of his faculties.
Georgia was 100 days ago today when I was inaugurated.
Now he's trying to get back on point.
The steps of the United States Capitol.
Reading his script.
To be your president. And I was looking forward to coming back and seeing these guys.
Now he's a little bit flummoxed there. Doesn't know what to do.
I agree with you. I'm working on it.
I agree with you. I'm working on it.
Give me another 5 days.
Give me another 5 days. What does that mean? Give me another 5 days. Well, I don't know. That's enough of that. You can watch the rest all by yourself, and I think we're going to end the report there. Stampede at Israeli religious festival injures scores, kills 44, and counting. Is in the video title will be Israel religious festival marred by stampede that leaves over 40 dead. And this is a breaking story, so a lot of details that have yet to emerge here. So this is a topic report, Israel religious festival stampede tragedy, that you can also call Lag Bomer religious festival stampede leaves 40 plus dead. Our top link here that I've selected is from Express News UK. Israel stampede, at least 44 killed in horror crush. What happened? And the excerpt from this is Israel has been hailed as a... I don't know why they started off with this. This is totally irrelevant. It really is completely irrelevant. But I'm going to highlight it here just to show that even in a story about, a tragedy unfolding a corpo state nationalist organ like Daily Mail, or Express UK, feels the need to get in its little agitprop to push its vaccination agenda. Israel has been hailed as a model country in its COVID vaccination program, having fully vaccinated more than 120 people per 1 million population. But now the country has experienced that seems kind of low. That seems really low. Is that right? I don't know why you would hail that. But now the country has experienced a tragic incident named a heavy disaster by the country's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. At least 44 people have been killed and dozens injured after a stampede took place at a religious bonfire festival in Israel, according to rescue officials. Dozens of festival goers were hurt at the Lag Bomer event in northern Mount Meron, where the annual commemorations took place. Tens of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews attended the Galilee tomb of the 2nd century sage Rabbi Shimei Yochai for the annual Lag Bomer, I don't know how you pronounce that, Lag Bomer commemoration. More links here. More than 40 people killed in stampede at religious festival from breakingnews.ie. More than 40 people have been killed in a stampede at a Jewish religious gathering in northern Israel, local authorities said. Moti Bukchin, spokesman for the Zaka Jewish religious gathering in northern Israel, local authorities said. Moti Bukchin, spokesman for the Zaka ambulance service, told Channel 12 TV on Friday that 44 people were killed in the incident. Let's see if they have a little bit more on this. The disaster occurred. I'm going to accept your cookies there. I accepted cookies. I did it. The disaster occurred at Mount Meron at the main celebration of Lag Bomer, a holiday where tens of thousands of people, mostly Orthodox Jews, gathered to honor Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, a 2nd century sage and mystic who was buried there. And there you see a picture there of the bodies that they've collected. Zakir Heller, spokesman for Israeli Rescue Service Megan Derdon, added about 150 people were hospitalized in the stampede. Prime Minister Netanyahu called it a great tragedy and said everyone was praying for the victims, as do I, and as I'm presuming many of our readers, our listeners do as well. The incident happened after midnight on Friday, and the cause of the stampede was not immediately clear. Videos circulating on social media showed large numbers of people packed together in tight spaces. That's probably the same every year. So that in and of itself is probably not the reason. A 24-year-old witness identified only by his first name, Devere, told the Army radio station that masses of people were pushed into the same corner and a vortex was created. He said a first row of people fell down and then a second row, when he was standing, also began to fall down from the pressure of the stampede. I felt I was about to die, he said. I'm very claustrophobic in general. I remember back in 2004, I think this might have been the last time that I voted for a Republican or a Democrat as president. It was the first time I had voted for a Republican or a Democrat as president in ever. So the only time I ever voted for a Republican or Democrat president in 2004, I voted for George Bush, and I went to a rally, and I got in there early, and I was at the front of the rally, toward the front of the rally, and I didn't realize until after it was over, the tens of well, it was like 15, 20,000 people there in a small space, and I was toward the front. And when I realized that I was in the midst of all that mass, it was quite claustrophobic, and I'm glad I didn't realize it until after the rally was over, because I wouldn't have been able to stay there. So I can't even imagine what these people were going through once the stampede started. It would have been horrifying for me. I would not probably have been one of the survivors, because I don't think I would have done very well. So my heart goes out to all of these folks that had to suffer such a horrifying death, and all the families that have to deal with these losses. Magen David Adam tweeted that it was treating 103 people, including 38 in critical condition. Israeli media had earlier reported that a grandstand collapsed, but the rescue service said all the injuries happened in a stampede. The Israeli military said it had dispatched medics and search and rescue teams, along with helicopters, to assist with a mass casualty incident in the area. So still unsure what caused this, and I know this is kind of a breaking story, so Not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if you find out that somebody shouted something that triggered some people, maybe bomb or something like that. And this, who knows? I don't want to say too much on this, but my heart goes out to all these people. Hearts, prayers, all that stuff. I'll end it there. Americans reject DNC plans to pack Supreme Court. I like this picture that I picked for Joe there. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! This is Court Packing Supreme Court Fallout Polls Panel. That's the topic report that we're looking for. And I originally called this topic report, 2/3 of Americans reject court packing, even as Biden forms panel to do just that. So 68%, that's more than 2/3, but I was being generous. 68% oppose adding seats to Supreme Court, new polls finds. This is from Christian Headlines in an excerpt from ChristianHeadlines.com. A majority of registered voters in the United States oppose adding seats to the U.S. Supreme Court, according to a new survey that also found bipartisan resistance to the idea. The survey by Mason-Dixon found that 68% of registered voters, including 98% of Republicans, 68% of independents, and 47% of Democrats. That means the majority of Democrats are for this. And I would be willing to bet if this poll was taken where the Republicans thought they were going to have the power as opposed to the Democrats, then you would see an exact flip. By the way, anybody that's moving to end the filibuster in Congress, they have in their head, they must have in their head that they will never ever have to face a diminishment of power, that somehow, and I think this is what the DNC is really trying to do, create a one-party government so that they never have to worry about competition again. This is the nature of humanity. Whenever we have any kind of position of advantage, especially without Christ in our lives, but not necessarily, there are plenty of people that don't have Christ in their lives that I wouldn't say this about, but especially without Christ in their lives. And there are some people that claim to have Christ in their lives that still don't reflect this. We tend to want to kill competition, and that's what this is. This is about killing competition so they can pass their extreme, radical, anti-king bill, that is Bill of Rights. The only true king, the only true leader in this land is King Bill, to be able to bypass all of these inconvenient hurdles to them being able to manipulate human beings on the fly to make them in their image rather than treat them as sacred beings in and of themselves. Well, you should be very nervous as an American citizen when you have a political party and its acolytes, and the majority of those acolytes support ending the filibuster, ending the reflection of a republic rather than a mobocracy. And you only favor a mobocracy when you imagine that you have the means to completely control the population with your agitprop, of which the DNC has every confidence that they have that power. A survey by Mason-Dixon found that 68% of registered voters, including 90% of Republicans, I already said this, but I want to repeat that. 90% of Republicans, 68% of independents, only 68% of independents, unbelievable, and 47% of Democrats. Shame on you, DNC. And if this was a story that I was reporting in which the Republicans were supporting a filibuster, I would be saying the same to the Republicans. Shame on you. You're not truly acting like Americans. But then again, most people in these, the deeper you get into the factual alignment, the less likely you are to care that much about King Bill, because King Bill is an impediment to you being able to impose your will on others without their consent. So that's why, for instance, you have a republic as opposed to a democracy. A democracy is simply the rule of the majority, and with no checks and balances on what the majority can do to the minority. And that does not favor consensual exchange at all. If you favor consensual exchange, you would not be for the filibuster ending. Registered voters remained opposed to court packing when the question was rephrased to include a current Democratic proposal, although more Democratic voters backed the idea. And then we have just a little bit of a glimpse at some of the headlines here so you get a sense of what's going on. Commentary: the latest plan to pack the Supreme Court from myjournalcourier.com. Benjamin Franklin said in 1789, our new constitution is now established. Everything seems to promise it will be durable, but in the world, nothing is certain except death and taxes. Apparently, there is one other certainty in this world. Democrats will try to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. And Roosevelt, it's going to point out, Roosevelt tried to do this in 1937. FDR was the last he was the last far-right leftist president that we had that perceived that he had the power to actually act in his far-right leftism. So Biden, whatever Biden is, whether he is a real person or whether he is a collective that gives him his drugs and points him in the cameras and makes him read a script, maybe some truth in between there. Whatever it is, the Biden, the collective, the individual, this entity has the perception that they have the power to pull off this level of republic-killing programs to assure that the American people no longer have any type of viable choice. Not that they have, because the Republican Party has, as I've said many times, the Republican Party is essentially the Washington Generals, and the Democrat Party are the Harlem Globetrotters. And even, although in this scenario, even when the Washington Generals, quote-unquote, win, they really don't, because they don't fundamentally shift the balance of power in any way away from the continuing growing power of the DNC. So here's some other headlines here. House could urge Congress to maintain 9 U.S. Supreme Court justices. The North Carolina General Assembly could go on, this is the North Carolina House, could go on record opposing court packing proposals in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure hoping that a lot of states, and as it just so happened it would have to be Republican, a lot of states may go on record to say, if you do this, we're not going to honor the Supreme Court. And I wouldn't. If you're going to pack the courts, then this is all a joke. Then this is all just whichever party is quote-unquote in power, they can just pack the courts again. So every party that is in power, and you'll just have, eventually we'll have like 89 Supreme Court justices. Oh, that'll be great. Biden's boneheaded idea to pack the Supreme Court, a danger to liberty. Like I said, and this is from DetroitNews.com, the last one was from MyDailyRecord.com. Like I said, you only do these things if you perceive that you have enough power to cut off competition, so you never have to worry about the competition doing to you what you're doing to them. And that should frighten Americans that value a republic over a mobocracy. Other opinions, Biden names his court packing panel. And here's a letter. Packing Supreme Court is an unvarnished power grab from union leader. And then here's from The Hill. Americans agree court packing is dangerous. And finally, from IWF.org, court packing is a non-starter. Uncle Tim Twitter trend exposes the systemic racism of the new left. And I'm calling this video GOP Senator and Black Man Tim Scott labeled Uncle Tim by DNC Twitter. And if you don't get the reference, Uncle Tom is, I think it's Uncle Tom's Cam. And Uncle Tom is a black slave who was comfortable in the mansion, in the master's mansion, and did the bidding of the master, helped the master rule over the other slaves. He was like a high-class slave, really. So that's essentially what they're calling Tim Scott. They're calling him a high-class slave, which is not racist at all. How dare a black human being in this land have ideas that don't match the fundamentalist, the right-wing fundamentalist ideology of the DNC. If you're outside the right-wing fundamentalist ideology of the DNC and you're black, you're an Uncle Tom. If you're not black, then, well, I should say person of color, whatever that means, that demonizing term where we lump all human beings into two categories, the quote-unquote white and the quote-unquote person of color. That's not demonizing or demoralizing at all, but never mind that. That's a whole other story. So Tim Scott, GOP response, Uncle Tim take token racist Twitter. That's the topic that we're looking at, which originally I called this topic report. Tim Scott deemed Uncle Tim for failing to be DNC compliant while black. So he is basically political while black is his crime. Political while black. Oppositional while black, really. from the nationalreview.com. Senator Tim Scott on Thursday morning slammed critics of his response to President Biden's address to a joint session of Congress, saying that Twitter trend Uncle Tim shows that the American left, the American right left, call it the right left, because it's really not leftist at all. It is the right left. And by that I mean, as I'm going to say over and over again in these videos, drill it into people's heads. By that I mean that they use all of the language of the left. They promise the same people who have been promised by the left in the past in getting relief from the actual injustice in the land, but they do it using the tactics of the far right. They're extremely authoritarian, moral supremacists who will not accept dissent of any kind. So just want to make sure, just stop calling them the left. There is no left in America today. It is the far right and the right. The Republicans are on the right and the left is on the far right. It has been an amazing morning with so many good people calling, but the left has the right left has doubled down, Scott said Thursday during an appearance on Fox. You cannot step down out of your lane, according to the liberal elite. He says left, but right left. We're going with right left, folks, right left. And then here's another thing from National Review, literally attacking the color of my skin. So Senator Tim Scott on Thursday morning slammed critics of his response to President Biden's address to joint sessions of Congress, saying the Twitter trend Uncle Tim showed the American right left is committed to a racialized politics that leaves no room for good faith disagreements. Well, you don't have any room for a good faith disagreement when you have on one side you have the American quote-unquote right, the traditional quote-unquote right, that relies upon its power, upon the ideational power of King Bill, the Bill of Rights. Now, I'm not saying that the American right actually lives out the Bill of Rights in a fully continual manner. They apply the Bill of Rights very, I'll say, injudiciously, but nevertheless, it is a legitimate vehicle of power for them, so they stand on that. And then you have the other side, an ideational construct, a revengetarian, absolutarian, moral supremacist ideology that cannot exist in a land in which human beings are assumed to be sacred in and of themselves, to be made in the image of God. And that's what the Bill of Rights reflects. It reflects this idea that human beings have a sacredness in and of themselves. They are not here for your purpose. They are not here for you to make them in your perverse, upside-down Christ image. They are here of their own accord. So the purpose of society is to allow a space where diverse beliefs, thoughts, whatever, are allowed to coexist amongst one another under one unity, and that unity is King Bill. So there is no room for this, and this is what the American right has long failed to understand about the right left, is that there is no negotiating with terrorists, and that's what these people are. They rely on terror and fear to force human beings into their perverse upside-down cross boxes, so they continue to make human beings in their image rather than recognizing the image of God in all of us. More headlines. Here's from Crooks and Liars. Crooks and Liars, almost as bad as Politics USA. Not quite. They're the right-left, awful right-left. The awful right-left blogs. On a scale of 1 to 10 in reliability, I give them maybe a 5, which is good for factional sites, by the way. I think I've given, they're kind of at the level of the Blaze as far as I see them on the right. Senator Tim Scott's rebuttal, America is not a racist nation. Twitter disagrees, and that's their headline that they think is a good thing. No, America's not a racist nation. Well, you are. You are right left. You are openly racist, and you hate everyone. You hate all the races. Really, you really hate all races except for people of color who conform to your particular upside-down Christ ideology. I think that headline just shows how tone deaf you truly are, because this title in and of itself, this is a racist title. Okay. Well, I'd have to extrapolate more to explain that. Maybe I shouldn't have said that because I can't extrapolate because I don't have time. But you don't have to trust me, but trust me. Media enamored with Biden's speech, disgusted by Tim Scott's from Free Beacon. Well, I don't need to read the excerpt here. I'm just going to read some of these headlines here. Senator Tim Scott's token response, theblackwallstimes.com. Wow, there's racism for you. token response. He's called token. He's a token. He's the token black. That's what they're doing there. Tim Scott, only black Republican senator set to respond to Joe Biden's address to Congress. ABC 7 Chicago. See how they only black Republican senator. Yeah, you're not race baiting there, ABC 7 Chicago. Shame on you. Lone black GOP Senator Tim Scott declares America is not racist, defends Georgia's new voting laws, and so to response. Yourweb.com. Also, there you go. Lone black GOP. Yeah, we know what you're doing there, you race baiter. Senator Scott blasts Dems for divisive political race baiting. Liberal Twitter brands him Uncle Tom in response. Russia doesn't like the SJWs, but there's reason for that. Never mind. So there you go. That's the state of affairs regarding the Uncle Timming of Tim Scott by the so-called left, which is really the far right left, or the right left, whatever you want to call it. Without breaking the filibuster. Wow, got a little typo there. I'm going to have to correct that after the show. Without breaking the filibuster, the radical agenda of the DNC will not happen. I'm going to call this Dems admit filibuster is all that stands between we, the people, and their authoritarian agenda. And I'm going to make sure I spell filibuster right in the video. So this is filibuster, DNC, democracy, mob rule. DNC media admit radical authoritarian agenda cannot pass with filibuster guarding the republic. This topic report. This is the same with the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court packing. They know that, right now it's allegedly, I say allegedly 6-3 in favor of the conservatives. So they just mean to do what they can to assure that they can put into place people who are not committed to King Bill, but are committed to the DNC Bibles, whatever they are. They have multiple Bibles, and so they still haven't gone through the harmonization process to zero it down to the one Bible that they'll all use to make sure that people fit within their perverse ideology. This headline from BBC News: filibuster, the biggest obstacle to Biden getting his way. And how? See that? The BBC, part of the Corpo State Nationalist Coalition, which is very informal. It's an informal coalition subject to revision as the various competing Corpo State Nationalists see opportunity to make themselves the only face in the mirror that they see, the mirror that reflects the leadership, the priest kings of the new Corpo State Nationalist reality. From BBC.com, here's the excerpt. Most of Biden's big-ticket goals require the support of Congress, and while the legislative branch is controlled narrowly by his party, passage of the president's agenda is far from guaranteed. The Senate, one of the two legislative chambers, is unique among Western democracies in effectively requiring a supermajority to enact most major pieces of legislation. That's because we're a republic and not a democracy. And that's why you notice that the American right-left never says defenders of the republic, it's defenders of democracy. Washington Post with his democracy dies in darkness. No, democracy should die. Nobody should support democracy because democracy is mobocracy. It's mob rule, and mob rule is empowering of the elite few because the mob, its IQ on average is 100 or less. And these human beings, not only do they have a low IQ, but they also lack the resources, the time, the space to figure out for themselves what's going on in the world because they're busy just grinding day to day. And so it is the elite who control the means of social and cultural production who can easily control these people and make them believe whatever they want them to believe. And that's why democracy is a big, powerful word in the mouths of the billionaires that rule this land. Not all billionaires are in their club, but I'm talking about the billionaires in their particular club. So more from this little excerpt here, this more than revealing excerpt that maybe this is really intended, this type of story is intended to inspire their factional partisans to support this for fear that the agenda that promises to deliver them from real injustice will get delivered. An agenda that, if it's passed, would not deliver anybody from the injustices in the land, would only increase the injustices. This derived from a Dutch word for pirate or freebooter in the 19th century, the filibuster, as it's called, has been a part of U.S. political process since the early days of the American Republic. See that? You finally said America. See, we are a republic. We're not a democracy. We're a republic. Well, whatever. Well, we're supposed to be a republic. Only in modern times, however, has it become a common and powerful tool for political obstruction. Its critics revile it as an anti-democratic practice. Well, good. We don't want democracy. We don't want democratic process. Democratic process is rule of the thugs, of the many thugs over the few who resist such thuggeries. An anti-democratic practice that can grind the gears of government to a halt. Good! Government should be grinded to a halt. Its supporters claim it is a cherished tradition that encourages bipartisanship and prevents a rushed legislative process. Well, it's a Republican principle, and if it wasn't used in the past, it was most likely because, well, by and large, the competing parties were much more, I'll just say they understood the reality of power a lot more. And maybe the reality of power has changed, I'm not sure. But the reality of power was that if the elites tried to thug on us too much, they would get their hat handed to them. And so there was a lot more agreement amongst the folks until, well, you know, the Civil War, where you have largely Christians that were inciting the government to change or die because of its stance on slavery. These Christians could not continue to align themselves with a government that claimed to be a government of liberty and yet continue to allow human beings who were no more or less than any other human beings to be enslaved. Chattel slavery. Other than that, after that time, there was a lot more harmony between the parties, at least as far as using the ideational construct of the Bill of Rights as a legitimization of power. But now the Bill of Rights as a legitimization of power is gone, and we're now, it's not gone, it's almost gone. We're now re-entering into the Bronze Age, where priest-kingism ruled the land, where power was legitimized by power alone. If you had the power, if you had the means of cultural, social, and lethal production, then that alone gave you the legitimization of power. That's what the DNC wants to get us back to. It is desperately, because, well, there's reasons for that. I've covered that in other shows. I won't get into it now because we're running out of time on this segment. Other headlines here. Why a filibuster showdown in the U.S. Senate is unavoidable. This is from The Guardian UK. The filibuster no longer represents the people's voice, pfall.org. Okay, we don't want the people's voice represented. We don't want mobocracy. We want a republic. We want a system where the thugs can't rule over the few. Arizona Democratic activist looking to deny Dem support for Senator Sinema. She's she's a Democrat who does not seem to voice support for ending the filibuster. Maybe because she still believes that the Republicans might one day be in power, whereas the rest of the Democrat Party, they believe they got this. They've locked it down, and now they can create a one-party rule in which competition has been fully eliminated, and the billionaires, the leaders of the Corpus State Nationalist Party, the de facto Corpus State Nationalist Party, can have their way with the rest of us. Senate must reform filibuster to achieve bipartisan compromise. That's insane. That's from the Hill. They're actually saying that bipartisanship will be created by removing the filibuster that checks the power of the majority over the minority. Insane. Reform the Senate filibuster and restore American democracy. ShepherdExpress.com. No, we're not a democracy. You idiot. I'm sorry, I shouldn't call people idiots. I apologize. But anyway, we're not a democracy. You don't want to live under a democracy, especially if you're one of the poors. If you're one of the poors, a democracy will destroy what little rights you have, what little ideational power you have that checks the lethal power of the state. You'll lose it all. And here's a letter. Biden undergoes a political change of heart on filibuster from BuffaloNews.com. And finally, Democrats hand their foes a weapon as they weigh a filibuster loophole from Politico.com. The necessity of rage, polarization, and addiction to social media profitability. This is a future headlines report in which I'm going to focus on social media tech depends on addicted, outraged, polarized society to make headlines or to make money. And I'm calling this video Rage and Hate Are Profit Machines for Social Media Corpo State Nationalists. And that is literally what we're talking about here. We're talking about the fact that if social media were to see a decrease in rage, a decrease in polarization, they would experience less clicks. And if they experience less clicks, less engagements, then they lose two things. They lose advertising revenue, and even more lucrative than advertising revenue, they lose data. They lose useful data that they can sell to marketers, so marketers can figure out how to reach you and can compel you to produce their largely crappy products and services. And I say largely because the marketers, the biggest marketers, are part of the corporate state nationalist, the de facto corporate state nationalist party, as I'm calling them. And they are heavily invested in making humans rather than serving humans. They have left the idea that we are made in God's image, that we all have the image of God within us. There's a sacredness about this. There is an individual sacredness about each of us, and we should be treated as individuals in and of ourselves, and we should be met where we live in large part, not completely, but in large part, and produce products and services that meet our needs. This is the somewhat the idea of what you might call capitalism. Not that what we have today or have had for 100 plus years is anything close to this ultimate idea of capitalism. Capitalism has become essentially power. It has become power. It's become power is right. The right of power. Might makes right, sort of. If you have the means to produce and create monopolies, then you can start to create humans that are going to be buying your product or service because you've conditioned them to need a product or service that might not actually serve their best interest. So this is the top headline here that I picked here from Fox Business. Ex-Google employee, big tech's biz model is a society that is addicted, outraged, polarized. Ex-Google employee and big tech critic Kristen Harris on Tuesday said the business model of big social media companies is to create a society that is addicted, outraged, and polarized, among other things. Harris, co-founder and president of the nonprofit Center for Human Technology, told the Senate Judiciary Committee during a Tuesday hearing on social media algorithms that companies like Google's, YouTube, and Facebook are profiting off of users' addiction to their platform. It's almost like having the heads of Exxon, BP, and Shell asking about, what are you doing to responsibly stop climate change? Harris said of social media companies' incentives for employees to increase user engagement on their platforms, their business model is to create a society that is addicted, outraged, polarized, performative, and disinformed. That's just the fundamentals of how it works. This is profit, profit, profit. And profit alone is basically might makes right. That's underlying it. Profit is more, I'm going to say, socialist in nature than quote-unquote capitalist, because it removes the sacredness of the individual, and it allows for the creation of increasingly I'll say concentrated levels of power in the hands of the very few that enables them, again, to not serve the individual, but to make the individual in their perverse image, and an image that guarantees that they won't have to deal with their competition in the future, because they have been conditioned to believe that the corpo state is the only state. So it's all about Apple and Google and Amazon and Facebook having absolute control over its citizens, so that they don't have to worry about the new rise of the new, because it should be pointed out that in America, maybe 40+% of millionaires are new millionaires, and these new millionaires, you know what they want? You know what they understand? how easy it is to displace the power that is with the rising technologies that are out there today. And every day there's a new technological threat to their power. And the only way that they can assure that they stay on top is to lock the door behind them. And that's why you see the nouveau riche are the ones that are fundamentally I'll say fundamentally the drivers of this new rabid corpo state drive to assure that there is no competition, because there are the new, and they want to make sure they understand how easy it is to displace the power that is, that it doesn't happen to them. And so they will continue to manipulate us any way that they can. One of the stories that we didn't get today that we're going to, well, maybe we'll end up talking about it. I don't know. I might do something this weekend or not. I'm not sure. But corporate America puts resources behind bill that criminalizes Christianity. That's a slight hyperbolic title, to be sure, but it's not nearly as hyperbolic as people might think. And this is the so-called, what do you call it, the Equality Act, or whatever Orwellian title they're giving it. They're Disney among 400 U.S. companies backing Equality Act, which experts say targets religious liberty. Basically, it goes down the road of criminalizing speech, and specifically speech, in this instance, one of the most easy ways to criminalize Christianity is just criminalize what Paul has to say about homosexuality, which he says it's a sin. And this would criminalize human beings even having the opinion that homosexuality is sin. And I'm not going to speak one way or another about what you should feel about that, but I'll just say I'm not for criminalizing the thought. Whether I agree with it or not, I'm not for criminalizing it. And these corporate state media companies, they're excited to be able to shut down Christianity, because Christianity, I'll say true, authentic Christianity, and this can take on many forms, whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant. I'm not excluding any of you folks, but authentic Christianity in the sense of Christianity that rules through consent, that rules through a promise of life, not a promise of death. Whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, or Protestant, if you're part of any type of belief system within those that affords you the opportunity or the quote-unquote right to take coercive action against individuals merely for not following Christ, well, you're not Christian in my eyes. And that type of Christianity, these type of corporate state media companies could very well one day adopt for their own. They're because that's been done through the ages. But authentic Christianity is a fundamental threat to their underlying assumption that you can thug on humans for reasons that don't have to do with humans thugging on others. That you can thug on humans merely for having long think. And this is what they support, because they want to shut down all opposition to the power that they have. Just cutting off competition. That's all it's about. And I'm not going to read the rest of these headlines here. You can go to freedomist.com and find this and read it all for yourself. And there you go, folks. We've come to the end of our show. And our show is sponsored by, brought to you by, created by Freedomist.com. So be sure to go to Freedomist.com if you like this show and you like the shorts that we produce. Go to Freedomist.com. Also subscribe to our 2 channels and also our, or I'm going to call it our partner channel. This is Action Botso that we use to post. We put 3 of our shorts on, the 3 main shorts we put on the white and gold Freedomist channel. And then we put the other 3 shorts, we put them on Action Botso, because we can't put 6 videos on one channel a day, because YouTube doesn't like us as it is, but they would like us even less if we did that. So you sub to all of the channels, our partner channel and our 3 main channels. And be sure you go to Freedomist.com and check out our Newswatch page, and it is updated throughout the day. As a matter of fact, sometime shortly after I get all the videos posted, the short videos posted, then I do updates. So I will be doing updates today, and you will see them throughout the day between now and, roughly speaking, about 5-6 o'clock in the evening. I continue to do updates. So be sure you check back and scroll through, keep scrolling through and finding the news stories as they appear. And we have topic reports that we do throughout the day, and I already know a few that I have lined up that I'm ready to produce. So with that, I thank you all for joining me on another edition of Daily Freedomist Show. We'll see you on Monday at 7:15 a.m., where we'll do this all over again. Until then, I say good day, good night.